Hello and welcome to today's broadcast. And I just wanted to say I was told that I need a haircut. Only that's not today's topic. Today's topic is based upon a quote by a well-known gentleman. His name was Benjamin Franklin. You might have heard of him. And he once said that if you fail to plan, you plan to fail. And we're going to talk all about that and how that's going to affect your business coming right up.
All right, Chaffee. People talk about planning all the time, and you just told us if we don't plan, we plan to fail.
Right. So if I don't plan to have a haircut, it's going to keep growing. I'm going to have an afro.
I want to see that.
Oh, do you?
Yeah. In fact, I'm just thinking I'll get you one of those big wigs that has the afro.
That's right. So anyway, yes, today's talk is about having a plan or a strategy for business success. And you have to have one in place if you want to succeed. Otherwise, as the quote says, then you're planning to fail because you don't know what you're doing, you don't know where you're going, and you don't know how to track it either. So
that's right. I think it was Napoleon Hill that talked about that as well in terms of what you put your attention on, gets better or worse, or it gets better. I mean, if you put your attention on bad things, the bad things get worse. If you put your attention on good things, the good things get worse.
Where your energy goes, your results grows. That's what the saying is. So yes, where you put your attention on, that's where you get the results. And so, when you have a plan of action, Scott, that's what you're focusing on, is executing that plan, executing that strategy. And obviously that plan that you've put together, or the plan that you got from somebody who has already succeeded, right? That's what you want to implement. That's where you're focusing on, so that you have an end goal to reach, you have a path to follow, and you know what you need to do every step of the way.
Yeah, and it's almost cliche-ish for me when we talk about plans, because the old example is, well, if you get into a car and you're going to go on a trip, do you ever get in the car not knowing where you're going to go? Like the odd time, I just want to drive. But I mean, that's like once in the last 50 years, or maybe it's a little less than 50 years. But generally speaking, if you're going to go on a vacation, you know that you're going to go to Mexico, or you're going to go to the town down the road, down the highway, or you know what you're going to do. And that's the beginning of your plan. You've got the end, the end result that you want. A lot of people don't think past that, though. I mean, I've done that. Like, I'm going to go to Playa del Carmen, and what are you going to do there? I don't know. I'll get there, and then I'll sit on the beach, I guess.
So let's talk about that real quick, Scott, because I think you brought up a really important point. When you're building a plan, which is, where do you start, right? And if you don't know where you're at, then you can just put together any plan and it doesn't really matter. So if I wanted to go to, like, you're in Canada right now, right?
That's correct.
And maybe I don't know you're in Canada. I'm just like, Scott, you're traveling all the time. I don't know where you're at. Only you want to go to Chicago. Come visit me. So I'm going to give you directions to Chicago. Well,
if you think I'm in Mexico, you're going to give me a lot different directions than if you think I'm in Canada.
Well, exactly. So if I think you're in Mexico, because that's the last place you're at, and I give you directions and I give it to you, you're going to go, what the heck? I can't do anything, right? So,
well, it depends also on how good your directions are. If you say, okay, you're in Playa del Carmen, so in order to get here, you need to drive west 500 miles, and then you need to go north however many thousands of miles. And I'm going to say, from where I am, if I drive west 500 miles, I'm halfway across. Well, I'm well into the Pacific. I'm not halfway across. I'm drowning. So, and then if I go north, I'm going to hit the North Pole. So I can't believe you live there. And if I don't tell you that these directions are crazy directions, and I just say, Chaffee, that's insane, I can't do that, then you think, like, what's this guy? He can't. I mean, it's an easy drive. Look at the map. It just goes up like that. And I'm looking at something that's impossible, right? So now we can't even communicate, because that's really great. Our perspectives are so different.
So I think that's important when you're working with a coach or a mentor, or even like a physical trainer, or somebody is that they got to get to know you and where you're at in your business and your life so that they can customize that strategy for you to get to where they want. So often, Scott, I see these 12-step programs, right? Here's the 12 steps you got to follow. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Only it doesn't take into account your past experience, you know, what you know, where you're at, what your skill sets are, what your strengths and weaknesses are. It's just 12 steps. And that oftentimes lets people, you know, hey, Velvo, that oftentimes leads people to failure, right? Because they're starting in the wrong spot. So
that's something that very few people talk about, or I've heard very rarely. But I think you're absolutely right. Like, where are you? And you talked about tracking and, you know, knowing the figures and knowing where, you know, basically like where you are. And so many businesses, they have no clue if they're profitable this week or last month or whatever.
Right.
They just, you know, the money is going out and they seem to have enough money, so it's not a high priority. But then eventually it comes along and bites them.
Absolutely. So you got to have, you got to know where you're at. You got to, you know, so I do recommend, first and foremost, is figure out who you are, where you are, what your strengths and weaknesses are. And there's a lot of tools out there that we can use to help you do that. There's the DISC model that we've talked about prior and prior training, Scott. There's the 360 degree evaluation, which is where you ask, you know, your coworkers, your family, and everybody around you to evaluate you. Different personality tests, and so that, you know, you got to do all that, and you also have to figure out again where you are from a business standpoint. Are you just starting out? Do you have experience? Where, you know, have you been in business for 2 or 3 years, and all that kind of stuff? And we call that a SWOT analysis. If you're familiar with SWOT analysis,
I've heard of it.
I do that a lot with a lot of my clients, which is your strengths, your weaknesses, your opportunities, and your threats. That's what we call a SWOT analysis. And using all these tools, figure out where you're at, and then, you know, figure out in your plan, that's your starting point, right? You're starting here, and then what do you want to achieve, and by when? And that's another key thing, Scott, is by when, right? You can have an idea, a dream, a goal to reach. Only if you don't put a date to it, it really just is a dream, right? It's not real. It doesn't matter because it could happen 10 years or 20 years or never, right? So we got to have dates. Those are important as well.
And as you were talking, something we talked about a couple times ago came up, and that was fear. Like, if I put down my goal and write this plan, and it wasn't what happens if I don't make it. It's like, what happens if I do make it? So not fear of failure, fear of success. Like, oh my goodness, what happens if I do this, right? And I think one of the things that we need to keep in mind is, as we implement our plan, as we take our steps to create this plan, to bring it into reality, we grow, right?
Yes.
Like, and it reminds me actually of a conversation I had with my mom. And she said, you know, when you were 6 and you were out playing in the yard, you were playing with, there were some 8-year-old boys. And I looked at those 8-year-old boys and you, and I thought, oh, how am I going to deal with him when he's 8 and behaves like them? And then she says, you were 8 and you were out in the yard and you were playing with 10-year-old boys. And I was looking at those 10-year-old boys going, oh, how am I going to deal with him when he behaves like those 10-year-olds? And she says, what I realized is you grew and I grew with you. And when you were 8, it was no problem. And when you were 10, it was no problem. And now that I'm 64, it's a big problem, but that's another story. But we grow into things, right? And if we don't make these goals, then we don't grow.
Absolutely. And you know what's funny, Scott, is that your mom grew to the point where now she just grunts, and then you do the opposite thing. Because I think that's what happened when you went into the corporate world. We were talking last week, well, how you wanted to become a president of the company, and she grunted, and you said, no, I'm not going to do that.
That's right. That's right. The people around us have a huge impact on on the success of our plans too. So, I mean, one thing that you just sort of brought up is the people around you have to buy into the plan and support you. If they're always saying, "Oh, you can't do that. That's stupid. That's crazy. That's insane," then it doesn't mean you can't do it, but it's a huge anchor on you.
Yeah, so that's key, and that also brings up another point, Scott, which is, and I was talking with somebody about this the other day about these huge companies that grow so fast. For example, Groupon, right? Groupon is here in Chicago, where I'm from. They reached $1 billion in revenue in 2 years. The fastest company one of the fastest companies, I think at the time the fastest company to do that. And when you're thinking of a plan, when you're thinking about putting things together, you can have a personal plan, like for yourself and what you want to achieve. And what I recommend is create a plan that's so big, that's so powerful, that motivates you, that inspires you, that is impossible for you to achieve unless you build a strong, powerful team around you. And that will push you to to achieve greater things and reach higher heights than ever before. Because now, in order for you to succeed, you're forced to go out there and get a support team to help you do certain things. And when you have a team of people working together, that not just is a linear growth, that's an exponential growth, right? That's what we haven't talked about that yet, Scott, or we've touched upon it. It's called the power of the mastermind. And when you have a group of people all working together towards the same focus, the same goal, not only have you surrounded yourself with a like-minded support group that can help you grow, you've also, again, multiplied exponentially the power behind that growth, so that everyone's doing different things, and together it creates something greater than the sum of its parts. And so, have a strong, powerful plan. Start and understand where you are. Only, the people that you're working with understand where they're at, and make sure they understand where they're at as well. And then you could all go down that journey together. As you said, Scott, it's a journey, right? Everyone's growing as you're going down that path. Nope, muted.
People have been talking about masterminds for centuries, and I still think that the average person totally underestimates the power of the mastermind. And where you just get together, you focus on a specific goal, and then and the people don't even have to be in your business, right? In fact, oftentimes it's better if you do a mastermind with people that are not in your business, not even in your category of business, because they have a different way of looking at things than you do, and then you can bring those things into your category of business, and they're kind of unique, right? But I've been involved in a lot of masterminds and continue to be involved in them, and I think that if you want to take your business to the next level, that's one of the most important things after having a coach and mentor that you can do, in my opinion.
Yeah, and Scott, another well, let me just start with, I've been part of several masterminds, and obviously I'm still in masterminds to this date. I help run a mastermind as well, and the important thing about a mastermind group, or any mastermind group, is that all the members have to be committed to that mastermind. They have to be committed to achieving the goals that they set while in that mastermind, and they have to be focused on making sure that they follow through with their commitments, because it's very easy for you to get together with a bunch of people, have a few drinks, have a good time, and promise a whole bunch of stuff and not do anything, right?
Right.
And we call that just a party and a waste of time. So if you want to be a part of a real, true, powerful mastermind where everyone is taking things to the next level and achieving greater things, it's commitment to that focus, commitment to that group is extremely important. And the other aspect of a mastermind, Scott, is what we talked about before, is that accountability factor, right? It's that everyone's holding everyone else accountable. So not only are you sharing what you want to achieve, you're making sure that you're doing what you said you would do, and you're also holding other people accountable to do what they said that they would do. So very, very key, critical things. And having a plan, right? Having a plan of action with steps written down and goals written down and milestones, that's what's going to help you hold yourself and other people accountable.
Yeah, you know, that's a really important point, Jaffe, because I know if I meet with somebody and I'm talking about my plan, and my plan is to get, let's just say, X done next week when we meet again, and then we're going to meet again, I have kind of two choices. One is to ghost you and not show up, or do it and show up, because I really don't want to show up and not have it done. Right? And obviously this is not 100%. Like, you know, if you meet for 50 straight weeks, and every time when you meet the following week you've done your step that you wanted, that you committed to do, and then one week you miss it, I mean, it's not the end of the world. We're not talking about, you know, being obsessive about, you know, this sort of thing, but it really is uncomfortable to know that I'm going to meet you at, you know, 12 o'clock today, and it's in 10 minutes and I haven't done something that's going to take me 3 hours to do. So, and I have to tell you I haven't done it. Right. And that's really the power of being accountable. It's like, it's not, you mean, you're not going to whip me, you're not going to fire me, you know, there's none of that sort of thing. But when I say I'm going to do something and I do it, I'm exercising the, I say I'm going to do it and I do it muscle. When I say I'm going to do it and then I don't do it, I exercise the, well, I'm going to slough off muscle. And my tendency, and I'm sure it's only me, is to slough off as much as I can for as long as I can. So, and I've noticed that, like, I have something and it's due at midnight, like I'm working on it at 10 to midnight. And it's like, why don't you work at this? You know, you've had all day and you've done nothing but sit in your hammock. Like, why don't you do it at 10 in the morning or 2 in the afternoon or whenever? And it's like, I don't know. And so I've worked on that because I've recognized it. And if you don't recognize something, you can't change it. And I've worked on getting things done beforehand, because we have this choice in life to be stressed out because we're rushing around getting something done that we could have, you know, almost everything could have been done long before the deadline, you know. So
several great points in there, Scott, and so many that I don't remember what they are because there's they kept piling up. I do want to address a couple things though that you mentioned. Is you're right, is that don't wait till the last minute to do something, and that's why you have a plan, right? So you know when the things that you want to accomplish are due and when they need to be finished by. And there's a really good book out there that I recommend everybody read or pick up. It's called Eat That Frog by Brian Tracy.
Brian Tracy. Oh, I haven't read one of his books for a long time.
Yeah. Good book. It's called Eat That Frog. And it talks about, you know, eating and doing, pretty much eating the ugly frog, right? Which is doing the things that you are putting off the most first, so that you don't put them off, right?
Right.
And what you'll find, Scott, is, and you know, everyone's like this, which is when you're doing something that you don't enjoy, you tend to procrastinate, you tend to push it off, you tend to not want to do it. It seems like it, you know, an hour task will take a full month because it's just like you're dragging out the pain.
Right.
And when you realize that if you just spend the hour and focus and get it over with, it's really not that bad. Right?
What was the name of that book again, Jaffe?
It's called Eat That Frog by Brian Tracy.
Right? Okay, there it is.
And so, you know, when you're putting together your plan, there's a couple aspects that I want to add or recommend that people do, which is, you know, see as much as possible how you can put things in there that you enjoy doing. Right. And so we've talked about your strengths and your weaknesses, you know, the things you enjoy, the things you don't enjoy. I'm a firm believer of doing things that you're good at, right? Doing things that you enjoy because you're going to excel at even more versus doing things that you're bad at because then you're just going to be mediocre at everything or just bad at it. Right. And not done. So the things that you're bad at or things you don't enjoy, can you find somebody else to do it for you? Can you hire somebody? Can you partner with somebody? Can you, you know, see if somebody else can take care of that task? Because it still has to be done, right? So maybe in the plan, it still has to be done. And that's why I said, you know, when you're putting together the plan, put together a plan where, you're forced to go out and build a good, strong team to support you, because they can do the things that you're not good at, and you could do the things that they're not good at. And together, you guys are both doing the things, or, all of you are doing the things that you're really good at, which then produces a great product.
Right. Many hands make light work.
Right.
Especially if they're doing the right thing. The other thing that I think is crucial in this whole process is setting yourself up for success. And like what you were just talking about was what we talked about right at the beginning. Like, you have to know where you are. What are your strengths? What are your weaknesses? So you need self-awareness. And then you take that self-awareness and like, how do I set things up so I'm successful? So for example, let's say that your job is to answer, one email in the morning, but you don't set the alarm and you sleep in till 1 in the afternoon. Or you turn off your computer, but it takes 3 hours for your computer to start up. Or you never remember the password and you always log out. So now it takes you hours and hours to get in to answer the email. So these are all simple examples that are kind of like obvious and silly, but we do that all the time. And as you were talking, I was thinking of a personal plan of mine, which is to exercise more. And the place that I'm staying downstairs is actually a gym with weights.
Wow.
And yeah, so you would think that, I like working out with weights, so I would, go in there all the time and work out. And I never go in there. I have not set myself up for success, because I leave the bedroom and I walk by it and I walk up the stairs and I'm away to the races. So I thought, how can I set myself up for successfully working out? And I know with me that I'm not going to start off with a 3-hour pushing weights program day one, because I know how sore I'm going to be and I don't want to be that sore. And I want to build up to it. So what I did was this. I brought 2 weights up here, put them by the door where I look out at the lake, so that I'll look at them and I'll say, okay, I'm looking at the lake, I might as well do some exercises. And I know that after a week or so, then I'm going to say, well, I should be doing more exercises than what I'm doing with these 2 weights. And then I'm going to schedule a time on my calendar where it's like, go downstairs for 20 minutes and work out in the weight room. And because I knew that if I did not bring these up here and put them over there where I can't miss them, then I would ignore the weight room for the whole time that I'm here. And then when I left, I wouldn't have had any movement on my physical health in terms of the weightlifting that I want to do. So I think that's really crucial, is being aware, like, where are we right now? Where do we want to go? And what are the things that we know about ourselves that will get in the way of us taking those steps for achieving whatever that goal is? And then what can you do to make it easy? And one thing that a lot of people do when they finish their day at work or before they go to bed, they'll get out their day planner or their calendar and they'll say, okay, tomorrow, these are all the things that I'm going to do. So when they get up, they can look at it and say, okay, there's my plan for the day. And hopefully by taking that quiet time and writing out what you want to do tomorrow, you're actually taking steps towards your plan. Like, sometimes those are all busy work things that are not taking you to where you want to go.
So you're funny, Scott.
Excuse me, I'll be right back.
That's right. You go put that away. Let me keep talking. So what's funny is, well, first of all, let me just say, good job, right? And what you're doing is what we call visual cues, right? You're putting things in your place that will visually remind you that you need to do certain things. And we've heard this term before: out of sight, out of mind, right? And so when you know you need to do something and you've been putting it off, and you're struggling with it, then put visual cues in front of yourself so that it reminds you that I need to do this. And it's kind of like, it's like a leaky faucet, right? You hear this drip, 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 and it's a constant annoyance. And it doesn't really annoy you enough to get it fixed. Only eventually it's going to keep adding up to the point where you're like, okay, I just got to get it fixed. It's driving me crazy.
Right.
And so that's what visual cues do, is it helps, annoy you until you actually do something. And it's funny. I'm actually the opposite of you, Scott. And you think about going swimming, and in cold water, right? There's two ways of doing that. You can either kind of inch your way in slowly and let your body get accustomed to it, or you can jump in and just suffer the pain and get it over with. And
No.
I'm kind of the jump in kind of guy. So if I haven't worked out for a long time, I'll get to the gym and just work out, and then the next day I won't be able to move.
Yeah.
And then it's just like I figure my body will recover. Only the pain will remind me that I need to keep doing it, because it's a constant reminder of I'm doing it right. so
And
yeah.
it's not instantaneous. Like, I was here, and then I thought, what can I do to make sure I start working out? And then I thought, then like 3 or 4 days later, I thought, well, I'll bring the weights up. And it was 3 or 4 days later before I actually picked up the weights and started working with them. And then it's like, this feels good. I like this. And now I'm doing it more. And then I'll say, I like doing it. I'm going to do more and more. But I am such a dip my toe in and like, no, that's too cold. I don't want to do it person. It's crazy.
Well, the good thing though is that whether you're like me or like you, we're both making progress. Right. We're both moving forward. We're both doing what we know we need to do. And that's key. And having a plan and putting those dates in there, saying I got to do it by this date, and forcing yourself to move forward is really going to help you stay on track to succeed in business.
Yeah.
And when you don't have that, like you said, Scott, you could be there for the next 3 months and never work out. Just keep walking by that room, right? You know, forget the visual cues, forget anything, forget jumping in, and 3 months later, you've added 10 pounds. Right?
Yeah. And that's been kind of the pattern, right? You get busy with things, and I, when we're talking about plans, we're talking specifically here about business, but this applies equally to your personal life and your spiritual life and your emotional life, and as well as your financial life and your health, right?
Yes.
And we need to sit down and figure out all those things, because if you've got if you're always tired all the time because you're out of shape and obese, then you're going to not be able to work at the level that you want to be able to work at. And that's really important. So let's talk a little bit about consistency and persistence. Now, when we have this plan and we want to achieve it over time, we don't need to be consistent. We can just pick it up whenever we feel like it, right?
Yeah, sure. So let's go back to this working out scenario.
Should I get my weight?
Yeah. So if you do what I do, which is hit the gym for an hour or two and feel sore, and then say I did my workout for the month, and then don't work out again for another month or 2 or 3.
We call that masochism.
That is right. And I'm not consistent with it, right, on a regular basis. Or I don't persist because, I went to the gym for an hour and I was too tired, and I'm going to give up because it hurts too much. Right. And that happens a lot of times in business. When you're doing something, it's so hard or it's a struggle. I work with a lot of real estate students, Scott,
Yeah.
And one of the biggest challenges is that, a lot of students make offers on properties that get turned down. So they give up because they're like, there's no motivated sellers out there. Nobody wants to buy my deals, and I can't find a deal. And so it's hard, and they give up. And in reality, it's just a sign that says if it's hard, then either you got to keep pushing through it and be persistent and consistent with it, or you got to make a change to your plan to figure out, why is it so hard? Is there an easy way around things? Right. And so persistency is critical, because you have to persist through the difficult times, and you got to be consistent, because you don't win a marathon, or you don't run a marathon by, again, just running a marathon and hoping you make it through, right? You have to consistently build.
Having never ran before.
Right. And so, again, it's the same thing in business. You got to be consistent with what you're doing. You got to be persistent. And with a plan, you can also track and make changes and adjustments along the way. And that's critical as well.
So you remind me of a fitness story that really applies to this whole talk that we've had today, Chaffee. I want to thank you for everything that you've contributed. And this fellow was an executive. He was busy, and he went to the gym, and he knew the trainer, and he said, listen, put together a plan for me. I want to get fit, and but I don't want to know anything. Like, I just want to, I don't have time. I want to show up. You tell me what to do. I do it. I go away. And then I come back and you tell me how many days or whatever, right? So the trainer says, no problem. We'll start on Monday. So Monday comes, they do it. The week goes by, they do it. The week goes by, they do it. The month goes by, they do it. The 2 months go by, 3 months. And around 3 or 4 months, the guy walks in and he says to the trainer, I quit. And the trainer is like, what? You know, because he's seen the difference. The pot belly has gone down. The muscles are coming here. He's standing up straighter. He's more confident. He sees all these changes in the executive, and he can't believe the guy's going to quit. He's like, why? And he says, well, you know, when I started, I thought that, you know, if when I worked out, I would get stronger and the weights would be easier to move and everything. And for 4 months, it's been hell. It's never, ever gotten any easier. And the trainer says, dude, you started off with 10-pound weights. You're now up to 75-pound weights. It's never going to get easier, but you're going to be doing more. End of story, right? So if you don't know where you're at in the beginning, and you don't know where you're at now, and you don't know where you're at the end, then you think nothing has happened, right? Right. And so that's why it's so important to, you know, look where you are and say, this is where I am right now. And then you have to write it down, because our brains, they really can't conceive of it. You're always the way you are now, when that's not true. Last year, you were very different than the way you are now. 10 years ago, you were very different. And if we don't have somebody that gives us that feedback of saying, hey, like, I can't, you know, I know it was a story and I'm sure it's all made up, but, you know, for the trainers and coaches out there, when you don't tell your client how much progress they've made, they don't know. And right. I'm learning Spanish right now, and I have a Spanish teacher in Bogota, Colombia. I get together between 3 and 5 times a week with them. And I have to tell you, like, right now, I'm struggling with it because I don't feel like I have time to practice. And so all I'm actually doing is showing up and spending that hour talking, right? And the other day, and I'm trying to think, like, what is that word I'm supposed to say, and how do I conjugate it, and everything else. And I'm thinking, like, this is crazy. Like, I'm not getting anywhere. And he said to me, like, you have made so much progress since we started. It's amazing. And he's right, because when we started, I didn't have a clue how to conjugate a verb, and I didn't have a clue if it should be this word and that one, which is where I'm at now. I just didn't know what the word was. So now I can't remember if it's this word or that word, which is way better than having no clue what the word is, right? But my frustration was really coming out in me, and I guess hopefully he sensed it. I think that's why he said what he said. And he said, no, like, look, think of how far you've come. And I have people who are Colombian that I, you know, FaceTime with and stuff, and they're all like, oh, you're speaking so much better now. And I'm going, oh, I'm not getting it, you know, I don't think I'm doing anything or improving. And everybody around me is saying, like, wow, that's a big difference. And it is a big difference, but that's not the way our brain works, which is why, another reason why a good coach is really important, because they say, hey, you've made this progress. Congratulations. We're going to celebrate your success. Because most of us, when we get in and and I use the Spanish thing as an example, but whatever we're doing, we're blah, 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 and we're focused on doing it. We don't realize that, you know, we've come so far in whatever it is that whatever our plan is, we've come a long way.
So again, Scott, you brought up multiple topics, multiple points in one story. So I do want to touch on a couple of them. And first and foremost, you mentioned that oftentimes we are our own worst critic, right? Oftentimes.
No, that never happens.
Never.
Never.
So as you said, it's good to get outside back, to see how we're progressing, to see how we're moving or not moving, right? And if you see yourself failing a lot, maybe you aren't holding yourself accountable enough. And On the flip side, I find that the most successful people I know are oftentimes the most critical of themselves as well.
Mm,
And so, it's okay to, as the second point, it's okay to celebrate your successes. And as you're moving along on your plan and reaching certain milestones, you need to celebrate that progress. Don't wait until the very end to have a big celebration, because it's a journey and it's going to continue. And so
yeah.
celebrate along the way and enjoy the process of succeeding versus struggling, hurting, and like just being miserable the entire time. so so celebrate on a regular basis the progress that you're making. And the third point I want to add too is that you can be consistent and persistent when you track your results and see what those results are, because
Right.
you will get results. And so if you have a plan and you're not tracking those results, right, then like you said, Scott, how do you know you're making progress? How do you know you're
Right.
moving forward? How do you know what to change, if what not to change? So
Yeah. In the world of electronics, a lot of people like to put calendars on their phones or iPads or computers or whatever, and I do as well. But I also have a book, and I love this book because it's tactile, right?
mhm.
And I have a list of things that I want to get done today, and I check them off. And it's amazing to me how good a feeling I get when that one's done, that one's done, that one's done, that one's not done, that's done. And I might have 10 things on my list, and I might get 7 of them done, 1 of them done, all of them done. And it's just, and I know, like, yeah, I'm making progress. And that I'm making progress attitude strengthens my making progress, right?
Right.
If I was crossing it all off and not done, I'd be procrastinating more and more and more, because I'd be overwhelmed and all those sort of things. And I think this is probably, unless you've got something you want to add right now, Chaffee, this is probably a good time to wrap it all up. But I want to tell one last story. And I'm in British Columbia, beautiful British Columbia. We have lots of mountains, and I love hiking in the mountains. And I haven't done as much the last few years because I haven't been here that much. But I was just thinking about it. And a couple times when I was climbing, all you see is like the bush in front of you and the trail, because you're going up this thing. And I can remember thinking, like, swearing and everything else, drenched in sweat, like, this is ridiculous. I'm not getting anywhere. And then I stopped and I looked behind me, and like the cars were like this big. So I had been thinking, like, I'm doing all this effort and I'm not getting anywhere. And I had actually gotten a long, long way. And that reminded me of another time when I was hiking with my buddy. And this was a particularly, we call it gnarly hike. It was steep, the rocks were rocky, and it was cold, and it was miserable hike. But our goal was to get to this little lake at the top, right? And we were both like drenched, and we came to this little waterfall, and we stopped to rest. And he was going to ask me, like, do you want to turn around and go down? And he said, like, when we finished the hike and everything else and we're driving home, he says, I was going to ask you if you wanted to quit this hike, because it was just like really miserable. And he says, I looked at your face and I thought, no, he's determined. He's not giving up. He's going to beat this mountain. And sometimes that's what you have to, you just have to say, you know what, I'm just going to do this, and whatever it takes. In my case, it was putting one foot in front of the other, going up this steep, miserable mountain.
Well, you had a guide with you, though, to help you along the way, though.
Yeah, that's right. Someone to keep me accountable. Like,
Right.
we were never going to give up at the same time. And that's really an important thing, right? Like, I asked my mom and I asked my dad once, like, how come you guys have been together for so long and haven't got divorced and all the rest of it? Like, what's the secret? And he said, well, we never both gave up at the same time. And that made all the difference.
Yeah. So don't give up. Never surrender.
Never surrender.
Never retreat.
If we had planned this out a little better, we would have that song, Never Surrender, blaring now.
That's right. So let's wrap it up, Scott. This lesson here, really, it's about, again, I go back to the quote from Benjamin Franklin is that if you fail to plan, you're planning to fail. And so have a good plan or strategy in place. And if you are doing something brand new that you've never done before, find somebody to work with that has done it. Find somebody to guide you or help you structure or put that plan together.
Right.
So that that plan, it could be a proven plan that somebody's already done, and they can put that together for you so that you can just walk down that path a lot easier than having to figure everything out yourself. And then as you go along that plan, make sure you're tracking results and then making adjustments along the way. Because sometimes, you know, we have these great, huge, grand plans. And as we're going through along the way, you know, that end result might end up changing. It might be bigger. It might be better. It might be different. And we won't know that unless we're tracking things along the way and making adjustments. So, to wrap that up, I just want to throw out there that I heard a quote, and I think this is pretty true, is that, you know, when NASA sends a rocket to the moon or a space shuttle to the moon, 99% of the time they're off course, right? And they know they have to get to the moon, except with, you know, the orbit and the rotation and all that kind of stuff. They're constantly making adjustments along the way, and then all of a sudden they land on the moon. It's an amazing, amazing process. To be able to accomplish that. And you could do the same thing when you have a good plan and you track results along the way.
Right. And you make adjustments to the plan, you tweak it.
Yep.
All right. Great. Thanks, Chaffee. Thanks for sharing this with us. Thank you for joining us, everybody. And we'll see you next time. Bye-bye.